I think we'll get started since we have to stick to time. A warm welcome to all the registered participants. I'm Kaveri, your host for today's webinar. Please do keep your mic on silent mode so that there isn't any disturbance during the webinar. Uh, and if you'd like to use your video, please feel free to do so. The webinar will be for about 60 minutes long, and question and answers will be taken after the presentation. You're requested to type in any questions you have in the chat box during the presentation, during the webinar. Thank you all for your cooperation. This webinar is third in the series of webinars hosted by Transcat and Sneha. And all previous webinars were so far been well received by all participants. Presenting today's webinar, the topic of which is role of technology in enabling productivity and employee engagement post-COVID-19 is Mr. S. Badri Narayana. This session is being hosted by Transcat People Solutions Private Limited and Rotary Bangalore Sneha. Transcat is a pan-India management consulting company, one of the most sought-after catalysts for change. They transform people and organizations to excel in their field. Many consultants have worked with companies in USA, Europe, Middle East, and Asia. Many of them are recipients of various awards, and 3 consultants are Guinness Book of World Record holders in Firewalk for Changing Mindset of thousands of employees. Rotary Bangalore Sneha is a part of Rotary International District 3190. Rotarian Dr. Nitya Leela is the current president. This club has been very active during these testing times of COVID-19. The president herself has volunteered on numerous occasions and has distributed food and grocery supplies to laborers and needy people around few pockets of Bangalore South. Flame Tower Nowhere Private Limited is an India-based company committed to culturally sensitive facilitation of transformation in organizations. Flame Tower brings in a healthy synthesis of OD technologies and tools drawn from various diverse sources, traditional Indian wisdom, and insights gained through consulting and dialogue-based participative approach. Tower's mission is to partner in creating organizations where every member adds value and every member feels valued, that inspires all its stakeholders and works with the 3 principal foci: organizational transformation, alignment, and optimization. So, without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Badri Narayana. S. Badri Narayana is an alumni of IIT Madras, a fellow of Sumedhas, a TRIZ practitioner in innovation, Lean Master, and ASQ certified black belt. He has spent over 4 decades with consulting experiences in various industry sectors after a distinguished career with the TVS and TTK group companies. He brings in deep understanding of product development, setting up factories, processes, and application of lean thinking, design thinking, and innovative approach to all functions of an organization towards business and operational excellence. The primary focus is value addition and to being the best one can be in your chosen area. Speaking on the topic, role of technology in enabling productivity and employee engagement post-COVID-19, Mr. S. Badri Narayana.
Thank you, Kaveri, for the warm welcome. And it's an honor and a privilege to conduct this webinar under the invitation of Transcat Solutions and Rotary Bangalore Sneha. I think the last few months from February and later on March, April, May have been pretty turbulent, a lot of uncertainties, lockdowns, and generally not knowing what to do next. But anyway, now the period is slowly moving towards removing the lockdown stage-wise and trying to get the manufacturing sectors and the IT sectors to start working towards meeting customer requirements and also building the economy. So this webinar explores the role of technology in enabling productivity and employee engagement post-COVID-19. Let me start with a brief introduction. I am Badri Narayan, as introduced, been consulting for a long time, been working in technology areas, behavioral sciences, and looking at transformation of various industries. A lot of the work that I do relates to how do we engage, how do we enable employees to perform better, to be the best they can be, and how technology will enable them to give value addition. So I would like to share some of the thoughts and also the thoughts that emergent technology, which is already available, how it can be harnessed. So the pro-COVID era, the productivity was defined by employee or associate productivity. This is more in terms of number of pieces per person or tons per person or the value addition per person. So it was far more looking at how much of value adding that is happening per man day or per associate and that. So it was kind of related to a lot of how do we improve associate productivity? How do you look at a person productivity? The employee engagement pre-COVID related to how do we retain people? How do we reduce absenteeism? How do you look at harnessing talent of people? How do you look at motivate people? And a lot of employee engagement was, as the word defines, is per employee. It was a lot to do with harnessing talent as in singular. So this was the pre-COVID. And the technology that was emerging was, can I have a return over investment and whatever I invest in? Right? Will the business support? And there's been a lot of talk in the manufacturing sector about Industry 4.0. What does this mean? In the world of robotics, it brings in automation. So this is the pre-COVID area, three months back. There are lots of talk that's been going on in Industry 4.0. So when you come to post-COVID era, how do you define productivity? Because now we no longer will have the same set of people working. There'll be reduced number of people working because the business itself, there is a downturn. You have social distancing. People can't work close to each other. So there is a lot of new ways of working. So how do we really define productivity in post-COVID area? How do you look at employee engagement? There are new rules, new normal. There needs to be more contribution from employees if you're going to work with less people. So how do you define employee engagement, and will the employee engagement move from a singular way of looking at it to a more inclusive, more pluralistic way of looking at it? And technology will have a very different ROI. Yeah. So what would be industry next? Because cannot be investments now, because you will not have the revenue generation for investments. And investments are also meant to grow an industry where you have a downturn of industry, but you still may need technology, right, in order to meet a customer requirement, in order to meet new product changes, in order to look at running the industry itself. You may need a new technology because you got to do less with more. So how do you really look at these three angles of how do you look at productivity? How do you look at employee engagement? What are the new rules? What are the new normal? And what kind of technology do you really look at? And there is lots of technology already available in the world in various fields, be it communication, be it in manufacturing, be it in transportation, a lot of different technologies, right? And these are all nascent, emergent, but this could get pitchforks. So the webinar intends to deal with each and every one of these three areas of looking at how do you look at productivity, how do you look at employee engagement, and what are the new rules. In other words, everywhere there is this, what is the new normal? How do you define the new normal? Can you even understand and look at that, what you did in the month of February, January, and now we're going to wait into June. is there a different way of working? I was just talking to some people the other day, and everywhere they're saying only 50% become alternate days. So how do when you come alternate days, how do you even have continuity of work? What is the nature of supervision you do? How do you even work on a new routine? Normally, when we look at a change management, one of the most difficult things of a change management is that you got to work differently moment change happens. If you work the same way as you did yesterday, there cannot be any change. You got to do things differently. You got to break old habits. If you're not communicating much, you got to communicate more. If you're not problem solving in real time, you need to get into problem solving. So all these things are the change management. Now you are having a change thrust on you. You cannot work the same way as you did yesterday because the same facilities don't exist. The same kind of social way of being together doesn't exist. You have to look at people doing more. There will be multi-skilling. So there's already a new normal. So you're thrust into the new normal. By force, you have to change. But how can you do it elegantly? How do you look at in an inclusive way? How do you even work with empathy and affinity? How do you look at a series of connections with people? This is what is the kind of exploration that this particular webinar has been constructed with. So what is the immediate impact? Yeah. So you had a sudden missive, go home or to wherever you are staying. Yeah. You had a rehearsal of a lockdown for 12 hours. Then there was lockdown 1, lockdown 2, lockdown 3. And I guess nobody really understood what is meant by this lockdown, right? I mean, earlier days, there used to be something called a 1 week off. Yeah, a 1 week off would mean that you paint things up, you maintain equipments, you install new software, you do a new infrastructure, but you had planned for it for months together. And there were some people who were essential you worked, other people non-essential would either have a vacation or they would work on some new projects. But essentially there was a planning towards how do you even shut down an entire industry, shut down work. But here there's no such thing. It was just that the previous day, the next day, stay at home, go home, contain yourself at home, follow all these processes. It was such a immediate thing that you had lots of issues. And we know there's this accident which happened that the chemicals reacting with each other because they were not maintained. So what kind of things you go back to was also extremely important, because nobody could go even do maintenance. You couldn't even close down things in a proper way. So a lot of these lockdowns are very sudden, and which probably didn't really help industries of the suddenness of this lockdown. Even though there's 1 week or 1 day notice or 3 day notice, it is still sudden because you thought somehow you could manage things. So in this era of these sudden missive, there was a whole series of communication technology surge. So people, even though they went home, right, they needed to communicate, especially in the knowledge economy. People work on support systems. They needed to communicate. Work still had to go on. Some pending jobs had to be done. So there was a lot of surge of the virtual mode. Zoom calls became a norm. It is not an exception. Yeah, Microsoft Teams started happening more and more emails, more conference calls, more Skype calls, more Google Hangouts. You name it. Every one of the virtual modes which was there at a certain way of communicating became more of a day-to-day, leading to zoomatitis, in the sense your voice started breaking down when you kept on talking so much, other people kept. So they have a whole lot of such surge of technology happen where you needed to have a fair amount of capability even to do that. Capability in terms of infrastructure needs. You needed to have bandwidths, call would drop off, things would stop, you needed to rejoin. So it led into a lot of such frustrations. There were people who had gone and they don't have laptops. They used to work with desktops, and suddenly there was communication. A review had to happen. They would use a mobile phone, and it'd be so difficult for them to work on it. So difficult to see things. So these are all the challenges that happen in terms of the COVID-19 impact. Yeah, there was also location issues. There were internet issues. Sometimes external noise would come in. There's a lot of these kinds of challenges that one went through during the lockdown period, and slowly one started adapting. One looked at a certain way of working, but it really created a change in tenses, a forced change. It was a sudden change. So the sudden change had its own nuances of fatigue, own nuances of stresses, own nuances of catching up with things like this, working when things don't work. So it had a whole series of these kinds of, I would say, a forced learning. So everybody was trying to work amidst all anxieties, frustration, and uncertainties. There were companies which were amidst a whole lot of design related things, delivery related things. Even though some deliveries did get postponed, did get cancelled, there are other deliveries which still had to happen. So, and how do you work? Because it's not easy, and even trying to get food, trying to get groceries. So all these things had its own stress, and people coped up with it. People coped up. They found a way of working with it. So there was a whole lot of empathy going around and communications going around. So there was this. Even now things are uncertain, but then the impact was that we have to now be ready with whatever uncertainty that can come in the future. In other words, this, I mean, it is a very live example of what is called the VUCA world. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So this is a real example that how do we cope up with it? In other words, how does an individual cope up with it? How does a team cope up with it? How does the society cope up with it? So all these were the kind of impact that the COVID-19 happened, and with the scary threat also of people over 60, people over 65, had even more prone. People with certain illness are more prone. So it kind of really resulted in hardly any work being done, even if people had to work from home, because these are the other challenges that kept coming during the lockdown, during the COVID-19, which is still going on. So what are the new challenges that the impact had? How will work be measured? So even where people were working off home, how do you really measure this work? Because people cannot work 8 hours a day anymore. They would do homework, they would do other work, there will be challenges. So how will work be measured? And is there a way of even valuing this particular thing, right? Even though people may come up with saying it's not important as long as you're safe, and that was a general word going around, are you safe? The first words were, are you safe? Right? Stay safe became the normal mode of communication. But even otherwise, it led to a thinking post COVID also, how do you look at work being measured? How will teaming happen? Because there's a distance, there's a proximity distancing happening, right? So how will teaming happen? How will different people collaborate where they need to collaborate? If somebody in a knowledge economy, if somebody does a UI, how would that get converted into a software? How would something else happen? So you're really looking at how will people really collaborate, whereas earlier people would be together and over the table you could do over one workstation, another workstation, you could look at it, you can dialogue it. Now you can't do all those things. So it means there it was very alive. You could do it every now and then. Here you can't do it every now and then, because every now and then would mean you got to show screens, you got to go on a virtual mode. So this really went into a new challenge mode. How will deliverables be measured? How do you really look at? Again, the normal deliverable is 8 hours of work. So now you don't have the 8 hours of work. So how do you look at deliverables being measured? How do you look at, therefore, a new way of looking at deliverables, looking at quality? What is the output? What is the outcome? What are the expectations of people? How do you even define and communicate expectations of people, right? And specifically in the manufacturing sector, total stoppage. Production completely stopped. There's no material conversion. There's no supply of materials. I think all of us also heard about how many trucks just got stranded on the road because they just couldn't move on and everybody just rushed. So you had a major calamity out there of looking at everything coming to a standstill. Now, what happens when you come to a standstill? What happens when every day morning you get up and you go to work and you come back and then you can't do that anymore? Right? So there is a whole series of challenges of looking at, I'm not doing the same rhythmic work I'm doing every day. I can't look forward to go to work. For some people, it also could be that I have no methods of earning now because I'm being paid by the hour or by the day, and there's no work to be done. So how will I get paid? Because there was no such kind of cover for people to get paid if such a calamity happens, if such an event happens, because you have to work on day-to-day basis. And if the revenue is also on a day-to-day basis, then it's even more challenging. How do you work? Take restaurants, for example. It's a day-to-day work. Every day, people come, have food, and they go, and all the workmen would be paid on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis. How does this happen? Whereas if you look at a certain gig economy, they do have short projects. They can turn around things like, say, animation based work, or if you're looking at a web design or looking at certain app to be developed, certain designs to be done, where the whole thing is on the knowledge side, right, rather than any supply side. They could manage for a certain time. Even they're used to working from home, so they're, for a certain time. But then as the project started disappearing, as it eroded, so even the gig economy would have challenges, right? If I don't have any work, nobody's reaching out for work, it's dry, how do I manage? Because I continuously work only on what people pay me on services. There is no such thing as a long term, there is no cover, no stability of any company giving me, salaries, or they protect me sometime. So you really need to look at how it is impacting, and what are the new challenges that I have. Do I need to skill up something different? What do I need to do? So when you move on to a corporate sector, what are the new challenges? As I mentioned earlier, your factories have stopped. You have support systems like IT, your support systems like HR, your support systems like design, your manufacturing. How does all this happen? How do the support systems even work? The factory is not working. And how do you keep people engaged? Because in a knowledge thing, the support system is all about knowledge. In a factory, it is conversion of material. In a support is providing knowledge, providing resources, providing services. What happens to them? What kind of work do you give it to them? Because otherwise they will be kind of left loose, right? Workmen, you can't do anything with it because you don't have an equipment, you don't have materials, you can't process. But how do you also deal with support? And there have been a lot of challenges of people saying, no, we need to do, let's have team reviews, let's have meetings, we have this project, that improvement project, can we review this now, can you review this then? But then it's a quite a bit of challenge to look at, can I sustain the support system nature of work, new policies, new designs, new process designs. How do I kind of keep that momentum up, or a certain degree of momentum up? How do differences get resolved, especially when you're looking at cross-functional approach between design and manufacturing, or between a coder and a UI developer, or a GUI? How do you kind of look at differences? How do you resolve these differences? How do you share your work by which people can relate to, even though you do have concurrent engineering platforms, but it's not as simple when you can't really work and people can't get together as and when they need, or a certain amount of time. So how do differences get resolved? These are the new challenges when you're looking at COVID-19 impact. How will you form, how will a collaborative platform be formed? What is the nature of collaboration itself needs to be defined, right? So collaboration means, how do you look at what kind of quality levels that people have to get used to, what kind of outcome that you need to desire, where do you need help from each other, at what point of time do you reach out to people, and will the people be free to reach out to you? Do you have a set of timelines where you keep saying, at this time let's collaborate on whatever, let's collaborate on work in progress, let's collaborate on certain ways by which we can be more creative? So these are some of the challenges, saying how do we even form a virtual collaborative platform? It's not about a virtual communication systems, it's about a virtual collaborative platform. How will productivity be defined? Because you don't have the 8 hours of work. So how will you even define this productivity? Right? I've already covered this. And how will employee engagement?
Mr. Badri, can we ask you, your slides are not visible and your video is not visible. Some of them are suggesting that we need to check on that.
Slides not visible.
Yeah, some of them are saying, and your video also not visible. For me, your slides are visible, no issue.
So what do I do?
Your video.
So maybe you can turn on your video so that people can see you speaking as well. It seems that the slides are visible, so that's not an issue. I think they had a little bit of people were having trouble viewing you.
Badri's
and
video is
finding
on.
the right. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the video, but then if I resume my presentation, that my video will not be visible.
No, it will be visible. I think last time also it was. So
Please start.
yeah, your video and the presentation is visible.
But I can't see the video here. I can't see my presentation.
Acha.
Let me try presenting again.
Yes.
Is it now visible to everybody? Can we
Yes,
check?
it's visible. I can see. Yeah, perfect.
Yep. So I was at this screen when we looked at the definition of employee engagement. So in brief, for a manufacturing economy other than essential sectors, you have a lot of idleness at home. The workforce just goes home, there's nothing to do. And there is no way you look at engaging this workforce, which are the value adding workforce, which working on equipment, which working on processes. How do you engage with them? For some, like R&D functions, they may continue with projects, they may continue with designs, continue with some customer communications. So wherever there are designs involved, which needs work from computers, there were a certain amount of work that was happening. For the rest, this is absolutely a new routine. For the rest of the people who cannot work, like maintenance people, they don't have no work. So what's the new routine? The change was indeed very stressful. They had to adapt to various things. They had to look at a way that need to be engaged. So there was a whole lot of stress that was happening. Maybe one got adjusted to the stress by trying to look at new skills, being engaged with family, doing other things, cleaning up the house. But net, there was this transition which was very difficult. And for the knowledge economy, work from home for some time, people could work from home. But after that, there was an issue that there was no work. So what do we do? So it led into layoffs, no revenue, requirements were getting postponed, requirements were getting cancelled. So this was the basic impact of COVID in terms of a manufacturing economy and in terms of the knowledge economy. So I would now look at how do you want to look at measure of productivity, but I would like to give a little pause here and look at the audience as to what triggered your thoughts. Can you kind of share maybe some questions about the impacts? If there's any specific things that you would like to later on discuss, you could put it down. If you had any different experiences, we would love to hear. So I would like some time for you to just reflect on what kind of impacts each one of you had in terms of the kind of time that we are having, which is still not post-COVID. We are still into COVID-19. And the post-COVID will come in only when the lockdown is removed and people slowly start going to work, which is already happening. There are people going to work in a very limited way, right? There are, factories opening up. There are IT sections opening up. There are offices opening up. So there is a few opening up that is happening slowly and steadily. So it is still not totally into post-COVID. It is moving towards the post-COVID, but then it's a new normal. So when you're looking at this, the first thing that happens when people are going back to their offices, people are going back to the manufacturing, how do you start now looking at work? Because end of the day, you need to produce, you need to deliver a service, you need to do some amount of work so that a customer gets a product or a service, right? If so, how do you define what productivity will be? In a pre-COVID, the productivity was defined by value addition per person, which is already covered earlier. And the drivers or goals for productivity: produce more with same. Yeah, you needed to produce more with the same amount of resources because there was a business increase anticipated. There were cost pressures to make it more profitable, But overall, there was a certain amount of buoyancy. There was a growth. There were people buying products. There were people asking for service. You knew that if you can produce more because the demand is more and with same set of people, right, which means an improvement of more output with the same input, it would be a driver. It would be some way you can measure things. So that was what was pre-COVID. Or you produce the same with less people because the business was stagnating. It was a matter of survival. You had to look at bottom lines. You needed to, keep sustaining yourselves. There was not much of a growth, but you needed to be more and more effective, mainly because you had a certain amount of sustaining to be done, certain amount of people that you need to pay for. So you had to produce the same with less number of resources, be more effective, be more productive. So the pre-COVID, we all looked at what is the definition of productivity, where you had lots of people, and the old normal was you had a set of people being close to each other. You had a supervisor who would look at allocation of work, who would look at delivery of materials, who would look at giving schedules, who would look at being with you every now and then to look at if you have any issues. So there is a lot of personalized contact that would happen when you're looking at the old normal. Yeah. And it was more of personal way of motivating people. It would be on the spot being there if anybody needed help. It would be looking at calling any maintenance people or a quality person or a methods to help. So there was a whole lot of people gathering together in a work spot, in a workplace, at a Gemba, by which you could constantly look at helping, and therefore together looking at a certain way that individuals can produce more. Individuals can look at a certain contribution. Whereas when you're looking at post-COVID, this now will get defined by more of a team productivity. Now, why will it be defined by team productivity? Because you got to produce less with even less number of resources. You can't have the same set of people because you cannot sustain them. There's a business downturn. Companies have to survive. And because of the business downturn, you got to produce less. And also you can't have the same number of people. You can't afford them. So it's even produce less with less. And this will go on for some time. So how do you look at producing less? How do you look at entire productivity when the whole business, there is a downturn? There, survival is essential. And a humane part of this is also, can you make enough by being more productive, that is produce less with even less, but also ensure certain amount of revenues, a certain amount of earnings, which can be used to sustain people whom you need, but you cannot have them now. Can you be kind to people who are being laid off? How that happens? How do you look at that also? Because layoff is something, you can do it, but then how can you be kind to them? How can you manage with it? How do you build it? Can that be a new way that you look at saying portion or a pie of whatever we do? We'll see how we can sustain others. We can see how they can also add value, even though they're not in the workplace, even though they're not going to do direct work, and what else can be managed? How do we prepare for this? And they may not earn the same, therefore it is subsistence allowance. So maybe we give some minimal amount. So how do we do that? Yeah. So the new normal, you have much less people. You don't have the same number of people. And obviously the new normal is not just related to people who are at the front, people of operator or people who are actually doing coding work. You're also looking at executives, people who have, a supervisor, people who are team leaders. So of them also, you can't have the same number of them because, the entire team has shrunk. So slowly the new normal would mean that you may want to look at more and more of self-supervision. Right? So people supervise their own work. You get into an era of do and check. You are looking at that I can't anymore sustain a large amount of people to do all supervision. So you're looking at a new organizational structure. You're looking at more network kind of a structure rather than a kind of a pyramidical structure. So the new normal will invite you, will in a way also demand that how do you look at people doing more work, because there is a sequence of work to be done. At the same time, how can they be more quality conscious of the work? How they can look at a value addition in the work they do? How do they understand a customer's requirement much more crisply? So it is not just about producing to a standard, it's also understanding more of customer requirement in terms of quality, in terms of cost, in terms of whatever responsiveness that you need. So it looks at the whole thing being that much more demanding, and therefore a new normal comes in is how organizations will cope up with this new normal. Therefore, now you're saying if there is a demand that you got to produce less with less, if productivity has to be redefined, if supervision has to be redefined, this is where technology can come in. You have a lot of emergent technologies which can be harnessed. The technology is not one looking at investments. Technology is looking at the way that you do things. Yeah. It is defined by team productivity. It is defined by less with less. So in a new normal, you have distances between people. If you're looking at a factory situation or even at an office situation, people, if you have 8 people in a workstation, probably you'll have only 4 people in a workstation, which means even coverage becomes very difficult, right? 8 people in an office space would mean the rental is better covered. Now suddenly you have only 4 people in a workstation. Similarly, in an assembly line, if you have 20 people in an assembly line, it could probably be 10. So because they have to be distanced to each other. So everywhere you are looking at a certain distance that is happening. So the new normal looks at these kinds of distances and a certain amount of self-supervision. So this arises to a lot of questions, right? How do we really look at the technology requirement? How will less people work and complete the process? Process cannot change. If there is a 10th step to a process, that 10 steps have to be done. You cannot combine them because they are unique individual processes. But instead of 20 people, have 10 people. Instead of 5 people, have 2 people. Right? These are the questions come in. How do I manage this? In what way can I have people functioning in a new environment like this? But the processes remain the same. There's no change in the process. It's a 10-step process, a 5-step process that remains the same. But less number of people working. That's one of the major questions that come in. How will material be efficiently moved in a manufacturing? Earlier, you had people to move materials from one place to another place. Right now, you may not have that kind of people because you can't afford those kinds of people anymore. So you are also looking at in which way that you want to look at material movement from one location to another location. This is inside the premise. Obviously, outside the premise, you will have the logistics, you will have transportation systems, but within a premise, how will material be efficiently moved? How will communication of what to do, how to do, when to do happen? People will be less. You got to communicate more. You got to communicate more frequently. Earlier, you had paper. You could go deliver paper. You could talk to them. You could go to a board and write things down. So many of them may change. You may not be having that level of communication because the moment you look at a certain distance, you're also looking at an ability to communicate at a distance. So this also some questions is, what do I need to do now? Because earlier I could just go right next to an operator, right next to a programmer, or right next to somebody and talk to them, develop a sketch there and then. You can't do many of those things now. So what will be the new normal for communicating to people? And you have less people also. How will problems and issues be resolved, right? How will you really look at a quick way of delivering, because you have less number of supervision also? So how will you look at problems, issues? Will it take more time? Can you be faster in this? In what way can you identify problems as they happen? So many of these things will be some of the questions that we are saying, how will this happen? Plus, this entire shift that the new normal will come in terms of empathy. Right now, when you look at empathizing, you're looking at putting yourself in other person's shoes and understanding what that person is going through, right? You're wearing a hat of another person in order you understand his situation, his way of doing it. Now it is changing that you need to first have an empathy towards yourself. Am I, in a state of well-being? Am I kind of taking care of myself? So you are looking at more of empathizing within yourself. And after that, looking at, therefore, if I am doing well, the other person will also be protected because I'm doing well. And then your way of looking at the other person is also how is he doing well. So it will be concerned about the well-being of another person and not only looking at putting shoes in terms of work, stresses of work, challenges of work. It is also more in looking at the well-being itself as a major movement in terms of the empathizing. So post-COVID, you have a lot of technology which needs to be fast-tracked now. These technologies are already available, can be fast-tracked. We know for a long time at the Gemba workplace, there's something called lean thinking. There's a lean way. Understanding value adding and non-value adding activities more deeply needs to happen. If many of the organizations have not yet looked at lean from this aspect, they need to look at it more closely, right? Hello? So the whole concept here of value adding is there a change in shape or property of material as it is being converted? Anything else which is not changing shape or property being non-value adding. Any knowledge that's not getting converted into useful action would be non-value adding. Any incomplete work would be non-value adding. Any rework will be non-value adding. Any waiting for things to happen. So there's a whole series of non-value adding which is kind of taken for granted in many companies now needs to be looked at more deeply because you can't afford those non-value adding. Right? In other words, you need to make workstation smart. Smart doesn't mean that you need to invest. Smart means knowing exactly what the standards demand, what the process demand, use of something called pre-control charts, which will indicate to you a predictive way of looking at is your process in control already, so that you don't land up in rework, which is non-value adding. So more and more of statistics, more and more of understanding pre-control. And this kind of pre-control earlier would be done more by supervisors and it would be some time driven. Now you need to look at these rules of pre-control being already delivered in these kiosks in terms of an augmented intelligence by which you would know that things are about to go wrong and you will correct it. Right? So, okay, because of this reason, something went wrong, you can correct it. So you can have augmented intelligence, which is happening both from an input side where you're looking at trends, you're predicting it. And if you can't, the first output that you get can also tell you there's something going wrong. And these are the inputs which you have gathered. So a smart workstation would mean through an operator engagement that you constantly input the way the process is being done. What are my control readings? What are my temperature readings, for example? What is my setting? In what way am I kind of working on this? So
yeah.
And through this, we're also looking at communicating through digital dashboards where everyone knows the progress. Different sections knows what is happening in this section, and the next section. So there's a whole lot of communication that is happening through digital dashboards by which they are more proactive to the way that work happens, and there's a lot of more value addition. And one of the most important thing about value addition is how do we look at people's potential and try to maximize the people's potential, utilize the people's potential in building better quality, in communicating on time, in a safe way of working, in a secure way of working. This is in terms of workstation kiosk where an operator is engaged in his work and you program data analytics by which you use an augmented intelligence by telling him that, you're about to go wrong, you can correct it, things like that. Then you're also going to smart equipments wherever there's mission critical equipments, where there are very sensitive nature of equipments, which right now do not have predictive and anticipatory tools. How do you equip them? Which is selectively investing in certain places where you are ensuring that this equipment is running continuously well. Therefore, you're looking at a technology of Internet of Things, you're looking at remote assistance, you're looking at remote control. Obviously, when you're looking at an IoT, we're looking at cloud servers, you're looking at harnessing these cloud servers. So one of the new normal will be trend analysis. This will be common. It will be moving into an era of more preparedness, into an era of early warning systems, and not just save for a rainy day. You got to save for rainy days, which means more and more of what you earn, a portion of it always would have to be there, as results portion would have to be there, a sense of looking at saying something happens, how do I manage a few months? How do I look at keeping my workforce steady, keeping my workforce continuously engaged? How do I really look at that? So trend analysis would be a very, very common thing, will be the new normal. You got to be better prepared. You got to understand value addition. You got to understand areas by which you can mitigate risks. So this would be more and more now happening in organizations. When you move on to a knowledge economy, again, on the other aspect is material movement systems. It needs to be more mechanized. One major thrust when you're looking at the new normal is the work needs to be more and more ergonomically and design led. You have to do more with less effort. If an operator or a person has to do more work, how do you reduce efforts? Because he has to do more work because the process demands. This has to be multitasking, multi-skilling. But can the efforts to do these be reduced by looking at productive tools, by looking at easier, lesser stress kind of work aids? Can you look at yoga based or asana based relief to the eyes, to the hands? Can you look more relaxation techniques between difficult work, heavy work? How do you bring in more amount of devices by which people don't have to lift heavy items, less bending, less reaching out? So you are now concentrating, saying, I would bring in more and more, you know, skills in design skills into making work with less effort. Empathy-led work design, communication design would mean, here, some time back I explained that you know the difficulties a person may have in doing something. You put yourself in that person's, and therefore you're saying things have to be within reach, things have to have a better HMI device, things have to kind of look at a certain ways by which he can do it easily. So you're understanding this. One, ergonomic is more about the human machine interface, and empathy is about emotions. Empathy looks at sensitizing and the way that you want to look communicating regularly when people are feeling distressed, people are feeling fatigued. How do you look at communication? And the other main thing is, how do you look at a social emotive closeness? A social emotive closeness is being alive to the emotions of different people. So how can technology enable? Is there something by which people can do a notification saying, I'm feeling a little distressed? Can you just look at me at least? Yeah, can you wave at me, or can you talk to me? And they are not close to each other. So if such things, how do you look at technology enabling through a tab-based, through a device-based system of people communicating their emotions and bringing certain amount of social closeness through these means? This is where the technology will help a lot. It's like when you're not in a good mood, something happens, how do you communicate these things? And this becomes more and more relevant because you don't have the luxury of more people working, nor walking to somebody else. You've got to work with a certain amount of distances. At remote locations and for a knowledge-driven economy, you are really looking at virtual rooms and virtual platforms. Now here, there's a difference when you look at virtual rooms and virtual platforms. Virtual rooms would be more where you are looking at all the Zoom-based communication systems and Skype systems. Virtual platforms would be where can I work on something together on a whiteboard? Recently, we did some work on virtual platforms where we could, a team of 6 people at different locations could actually put post-its, talk, and in the virtual problem, create an entire, problem-solving methodology to virtual platforms. So these virtual platforms become more and more popular, and it has to be done that way, wherein you can really look at seeing each other's work as it is happening, and then work on collaborating there. So this would be also be fast track. There are already systems available. Now this will become the new normal. How do you look at virtual rooms? How do you look at virtual platforms? Therefore, you need to have a demand on cloud server infrastructure. There needs to be high speed. You need to have new softwares. There could be demands on bandwidths, right? And then you move on to new paradigms of value addition. How can you get customers' views instantly? How can you look at being very responsive to them? Therefore, customer relationship management becomes very important. So on a real-time basis, how do you interact with the customer so that you can give more and more value addition? So the value addition paradigm itself, you're not going to wait for a feedback. You're going to be proactive to a customer. So it becomes a very different way where we are not looking at a CSAT survey. You're looking at saying, as you're doing things, talk to the customer and can add more value, or even as the work in progress itself, you can look at in between getting customers' responses wherever the customer is willing to co-create and be proactive with you. Associated ease of work design is, if you find somebody else having difficulty, can you go and help them? Can you look at ease of work? Can you design, the way a screen is done to do it easily? Can you look at difficulties, the way something is being done? You look at complexity, can you make it more simple? So this becomes a new value addition, saying, how do I look at constantly ease of work? I don't complicate things. I need to make it simple. I need to make it minimalistic. I need to work in such a way that there is an easy way of doing things. And if you're looking at a shop floor, can I have a drone-based system by which I can see what is happening in the shop floor? Therefore, I can relate to them. I can see what they see. And that is a way that which one can look at emerging technology. So drones could be expensive. Maybe you could hire some. Maybe somebody could support you in that. But wherever it is relevant, wherever there are large campuses, wherever you don't have the necessary workforce to go with it, maybe this could be an easier way with a certain amount of cost attached. And emotional empathy connects. I've repeated this again, but this is very important because all the time we need to look at the emotional empathy connects and how technology can really help. So in brief, the technology would get pitchforked. One is a technology of delivery, where with now available resources, how can you meet customer demands? How can you meet quality requirements? These are the sources available. Can you look at all the lean methodologies? Can you look at non-value adding being removed? Can you enhance value adding? Can you look at people collaboration? Can you understand the value of real-time information? Right? Can you collaborate more and more rather than end of the day seeing something, or after the problem happens seeing something? Can you look at real time? Can you look at this kind of a value? Can you use digital platforms? You already have a lot of digital platforms in the current world. Can more and more digital platforms can help you to communicate, can help you to raise alarms, can you help you to be secure, it can help you to be safe. Yeah. And as you go through this technology of delivery, you're looking at more cellular systems, more of lean layouts where there is no a lot of distances. But in a cellular can work both in terms of, as you do things, the other person can see what you're doing, or as you do things and a certain time frame, you invite somebody to look at what you're doing. So cellular not necessarily means a physical entity. Cellular could also mean a virtual entity where people are connected, and at a certain time or a certain event completion or a process completion, they can talk to each other, they can collaborate. So when you're looking at a lean layout, you're also looking at not a way of reducing time between one process to another process, or inviting people to already give you inputs by which, as you complete it, you make it perfect. Not that you send something and somebody else says, no, this is not okay, that is not okay, it comes back to you. So cellular all looks at collaborative in a way by which together you make things happen in as fast a time, more accurately, more elegantly, and in a way that the customer gets delighted. And when you're looking at manufacturing, you're looking at a way that safety has to be assured, because people would be working with multiple processes and they may take time to get adjusted to the new processes. So how do you look at workplace safety? How do you look at security in the workplace? How do you look at cyber security? Because a lot of digital platforms would be used. So many of these things also you want to look at as something with now available resources, what all can be done. Some of them would need minimal amount of investments, and as the current industry packages go, there's a lot of loans being available. So one really needs to look at the minimal amount by which I can produce less with less, or I can manage the same with less. And there would be deeper level technology, which would need stage-wise investments. which can add value to customer needs, people needs, and business needs. And this will be the world of automation. Now here the world of automation will be very different, because here the world of automation is to make things more simple, to make things more safe, to make things more quality oriented. And wherever very high speed repetitive areas are there, you're looking at that, because it's hazardous for people to work, difficult for people to work. So the whole world of automation needs different kind of approach now, because from a business side, the business is a downturn, but from an operation side, you may still need automation because it is not safe, or it is highly repetitive, it is difficult for people to work. So how do you look at that? Yeah, this is which means earlier you may not have considered from this angle. You would have considered automation from an angle of growth. Now we got to look at the world of automation not from growth, from safety, from hazard areas. We want to look at it differently. So now we come to the final segment, which looks at how do you look at employee engagement. So what kind of collaboration engine that you may need to look at? What kind of value addition you may need to look at? How do you look at co-worker communication through a digital means? You're looking at team productivity. You're looking at things which has to be ownership-led. It has to be self-supervised, self-driven. It will need far more hand-holding. It has to be trust-led. There has to be empowerment, which means a lot more HR and OD kind of initiatives that needs to happen in bringing the entire area of ownership-led kind of employee engagement, employee nature of work. Got to redefine work content. How do you carry out this work? And when you're looking at work content redefinition, how to carry out, there could be constant changes, there could be new thing that is happening, new workmen should certainly come. Here one looks at another technology of augmented reality, which can help you in instant learning, which can help you to learn very quickly. Right? So a new person comes, or there's a change in a process, or there's an improvement in a process, or one workman suddenly who is not doing this work has to do another piece of work. How does he learn quickly? Because you can't afford people going and teaching them. So there has to be an era which, the new normal of instant learning. And how do we motivate people? How do you look at communication multiple ways? And not just about motivation, how do you look at a way of inspiring people? How do you bring in energy into the system? Energy by which there is success in what they do, energy by which their peers help each other, energy by which their family knows that, this company is taking care of you pretty well. In times of crisis, they also support you. So you're really looking at not just the motivation, which is enabling you to do value addition, but also inspiring people to contribute more, to kind of be proud of what they are doing, and the community is proud of the way things are. This could be a new normal. But again, when you're looking at MSME segment, how do they really look at it? Can they really invest in time to do such things? Because they won't have done such things earlier, because it would be more on a monetary basis that you come, you work, you get paid and you go. But now that may not be there, because they may have to work with less. They may have to charm these people to work more. So how do you look at inspiring and motivating people? And when you're looking at remote location and work from home, challenging of balancing the outcome and expectations. So it moves from productivity to outcome and expectations, right? So can you look at a new way of looking at value addition, right? There is work to operation distances. So when there's work to operation, can I see from a remote location what the operator sees? Can I have drones without intrusion? Can I have CCTVs? And it also means a constant alertness to look at all these things, so that you are all the time alert, saying things are going as per schedule, or there is absolutely safety in the workplace, or if people want help, I can reach out to help. If there is any issue that can be dealt with, how do you look at, working remotely, working from home when there's such a distance is there? So technology of drones, for example. Affinity distances, how do I bring in connections? In other words, an affinity means that I am linked to another person much more than just work, more in terms of how we are safe, how we are looking at well-being, how we are looking at sharing such things, sharing of emotions, therefore the emotional connects. And you do have emotion reading vision systems, and co-worker sensitivity has to become more and more. So you are looking at a whole new normal when you're looking at employee engagement experiences. In other words, we are really bringing to a field of effective employee engagement experiences, which now no longer looks at employee, but looks at employees, looks at co-workers, look at team-based productivity. I've already gone through this, that even in remote, you're looking at remote locations, working from home. How do you motivate people working from home? How do you motivate people working in a remote location? What is the nature of virtual dialogues, a virtual coffee event? How do they also feel connected? Because they won't have anybody else. In a factory, you have people connecting with each other. They can see each other. They may have their distances, but they can still have a coffee break. They can still have lunch at a certain. But when you're looking at people working from home and at remote locations, how is this being managed? How do you look at what is the isolation that people may feel? In what way they're getting affected? So how do you even look at this thing has to be investigated, this thing has to be explored, and there's a whole series. And even here co-workers can help each other even from remote by having some kind of a dialogue, some ways by which there are breakout events by which, or a breakout times by which they can motivate, inspire each other. So in conclusion, the new normal, you have customer and market demand being much lesser, more online requirements. You have a certain install capacity, but then because of lesser demand, there's reduced utilization, but you have the same process. Process remains the same, but the utilization is reduced because you got to produce less. And because you got to also produce less, your volumes are less, it's reduced people. So the reduced people have to follow the same process with much lesser output, much lesser kind of volumes. So how do you look at this new normal? This is where you embrace technology, right? So you got to produce with less, you got to communicate more. We have looked at various technology of delivery, lean ways of looking at things, augmented intelligence. We have looked at database systems, looked at being smart through engagement, not necessarily through investment. So you're looking at embracing data analytics, for example, deep data analytics. So some of the things which can enable both in a simple way as well as wherever there is fair amount of sophistication, we get into a more deeper level. So this would both help in the technology, would help in looking at the process continuity and also helping people in working with multiple processes. So the employee engagement will be in full focus. How do you look at empathy? How do you look at affinity? How do you look at strength of connection? How do you look at team productivity? These are the ways that the new normal would lead into. And how do you constantly enable technology in order to enable employee engagement? And the world is going to go in being increasingly digital. So thank you so much for listening in. I've come to the end of the presentation and the webinar. I hope it was useful and informative. Feel free to post all your questions you've already done. Now I hand over to Kaveri to look at what kind of questions and how we answer these questions.
Hi, thank you, Badrisa, for your presentation. I would, one second. Yeah, so question and answer now. I've already posted a few questions, so I'll just, one of the questions by Avnish, he says, when you spoke about layoff, he asked whether it's downsizing or right sizing.
It will be right sizing, because your volumes of work has reduced. Since the volumes of work has reduced, so you need less people to carry out that work. So it will be right sizing. So the people whom you need would be that. It won't be downsizing.
Right. Thank you, sir. Another question from Dr. James. He says, at this point in time, how will we manage investing and paying salaries or investing in IT?
I think one of the packages that the government has given is in terms of small medium loans. So it would be a way that people would, the business has to be assured first. So one is, if the business is assured that there is a customer at the end of what you want to produce, today there are loans being offered at 7.5% interest or even lesser interest rates, by which companies can approach the banks for loans, by which they can invest in essential things with the justification of how they can meet customer demand, how they can sustain the business. So there are these things available now by which industries can manage to get over the tide of looking at lower revenues and less kind of reserves in their banks or, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Another question from Madhava Krishna. He says, "Sir, amazing concept. How do we use post-its in virtual environments like Zoom or MT or Meet?"
See, there is a particular site called Miro.com. In Miro.com, you have virtual boards. So if you invite a set of people to work, they can take post-its and put it on the board. So there's a moderator who places these things on the board. So you can, multiple people can keep posting it on the board. So you can really work on a virtual platform. The site is called Miro.com, where you can do this. I've already tried it out. It's really very helpful.
Thank you. And there's another question posted by Aparajit Mehta. He says, how will downsizing be managed at a macroeconomy level?
See, the macroeconomy itself is reduced, right? You are looking at a much lower GDP growth. So you need to ensure that you're alive. You need to ensure that it's downsizing is because you don't have customers from whom you need to provide the product or a service. And also customers may not lift things even if you do, because they may not have their end of another customer who's buying their products. So because of a downturn, the macroeconomics also would mean more cash infusion coming in from the banks, but lesser amount of the taxes will be much lesser. So this needs to be supported for some amount of time. There would be a deficit, but this needs to be supported for some amount of time. And the only way that any industries can do is to be more and more efficient. And whatever you have, can you be more efficient? Can you really look at efficiencies with microscopes and be more efficient? And as a period of time, of course, the macroeconomy will kind of change. There could be different requirement of services. Maybe some sectors which will go more, some sectors will be less. So that's how we're looking at downsizing in a macroeconomic. But you also start looking at what other sources of business can you start working with. Are there areas which is neglected that you can start working with? Yeah. So you're looking at those signs that could indirectly help the macroeconomics.
Great. So Avnish, his call got cut at that point of time. He wanted to ask you if you could give the answer again about whether layoff is downsizing or right sizing.
I've answered it's more of right sizing.
Right sizing, right. And Dr. James has also asked another question. What are the new competencies required for HR in the pandemic situation when business is down, morale is down, pink slips and so on, and should HR realign?
Yeah, HR should realign to be more empathy and emotional oriented. They need to have more amount of contact sessions with the employees. Look at group conversation in terms of solving rather than individual. More amount of group dialogues by which people can share their concerns, their issues, and the ability to moderate, the ability to help the people in these situations. So there's a lot of group dynamics. So the HR has to work a lot more in group dynamics. They has to more on sharing, more on, because each person's situation could be different, but there could be another person who has a similar situation who could contribute to a better communication or help in empathizing, which probably a single HR person would not be able to do. So HR person should have an ability to look at group work, and through group synthesis and group dialogues, help in more sharing, help in more emotional connects. And that is the new skill that the HR would have to be developed, that they have to work on group paradigms rather than on individual paradigms, and look at resources of the group and develop these resources, because different people may have a good emotional intelligence, they could be good emotional maturity levels, they have a way of empathizing, they may have a good social way that they work in a community. So how do you discover such skills which anybody would have based on their life role, and bring that in the fore and work on more group communication, team communications? So the skill would be, how do you look at bringing this up? How do you look at listening to such and slowly evoking people to share more and more?
Atul asks, the new changes that have come as a result of COVID, it will certainly affect the psychology of employees in terms of job security, job stress, work pressure, etc. So what kind of impact will that have in work?
See, there are two angles to it. One angle is the fact that your work itself could be one kind of a dopamine, could be one kind of a relaxing, hey, I have something to do. Whereas for the last 2 months, you had nothing to do. So one aspect is there is something for me to do. I am used to a certain workplace. I'm used to a certain way of working. I'm going back to a certain routine. Now that kind of a thing will already work very positively, provided it is also supported by the team or by the people where he is going by these dialogues, saying that it has worked, which means there is a certain amount of earning that can happen. I am into a certain routine. I like the work I'm doing, or I know that I have to do this in order to survive, in order to earn money. So there is a fact that things are opening up and you're going back to work itself, according to me, would have a positive impact, right? The other portion is keeping this on a regular communication and being more in contact and encouraging people, saying, can you develop new ways, can you come up with some ideas, or don't look at the issues that you have in the past, and bringing in that sense of communications, that sense of listening in, the sense of emphasizing, and then always bringing in a group kind of dynamics would probably help in when they go back to work to feel more comfortable. So you got to make people more comfortable, because the reverse of it is this has happened. Now what if it will happen again? Yeah. So that kind of assurance also is important. So there has to be some sense of sharing by the owner of a company or by the MD or a CEO of a company, saying that, look, I'm going to share more often as how the business is progressing. That we do have these customers. These customers need this service. Right now, maybe the service and the output will be less, but it will grow. And if we keep working on it, we will be able to ride over, we'll be able to do something better in course of time. So this communication saying there is a secure business that can happen, even if it is less, but it's going to happen month on month, it's going to happen frequently, and we're going to keep telling you this. So as long as these kinds of communication happen, saying I have a sense of safety in the company, I have a sense of communication which really tells me this is what it is, this is what it is, then I feel that I'm included in the process. So it will be a lot of inclusiveness that is very important, whether it's good or bad or whatever. There has to be that sense that can make the difference to the way you can, really look at, giving positive strokes to the people who join in.
Thank you, sir. Surya has said in a labor intensive industry, there's a contradiction between social distancing and flow, right? Because it is a labor intensive industry. And therefore, are there any specific inputs that, because they'll be running at reduced capacity, what digital tech could be used in manufacturing?
There are two aspects here. One is that how do we handle material movement from one process to another process because there's social distancing? And how do you look at a communication system through tab, through a digital dashboard? It could even be a centralized dashboard which people can see, or over a certain set of workstations, there could be a digital dashboard. So as and when they complete each operations, they can post what they have done, and if there is any issue, they can post it. So this method, it will slow down the process, all right, but then it will help in communicating from one station to another station, or help in communicating to a quality person or to anybody else who needs help. So the digital will help in this level of communication. So even if some person physically is not there, but through the digital means, they can communication happen. So there are two levels. Next process being the customer is one way you can look at it. And the other way is if you need any help, you can through each station having a way of communicating would really help in, when you're producing less and you're really looking at the social distancing being leveraged in a different way digitally.
Jeba asks, will the concept of work from home have a major impact on high performance work culture?
That's a good question,
yeah.
Right? It's a very excellent question, because a high performance work culture has got one element of saying how constantly you are recognized for the work that you do. Typically, in any organization, or typically in terms of performance itself, you have people who are high performer, you have people who are an average performer, and you have people who kind of do what they are told to do, right? They may not think, but you have to give them specific instructions. So one major requirement for high performers is they don't need to know, they don't need to be told what to do. They may, they know already, but then they will need constant amount of encouragement, saying like, hey, you've done this work, there's an emoji around it, there is a appreciation around it, there's a team appreciation around it. So the high performers would need more and more appreciations happening every now and then. If it doesn't happen, they won't even know, is my work good enough, because they pride themselves. So in work from home, there probably needs to be more these kinds of a time based or a periodic based or a work completion based of a very quick pat on the back virtually done. Yeah. And that is important. And here is not just about pat on the back from one person. It could be a boss, it could be a team, but more of peer recognition or a customer based recognition would really help for high performers and a high performance culture if you're working from home. So it would need, and you can't overdo it, because if you overdo it, it will seem very mechanical. It has to be in a certain, carefully done the way that you engage with high performers and therefore, how do you really promote high performance work culture? And like having a virtual coffee, you share a kind of a cake or something like that, which is virtual, or you deliver a cake to different people at the same time, and each one is having their own pastries together in these kind of different ways. Yeah, because work performance has to get appreciated a primarily by customer. So if you have more customers talking about, hey, you have done a good job, that itself is a very primary source of motivation to a high performer, as well as obviously your peers and your superior, but much more it is how do you bring in customer to an area of high performance more and more proactively.
I'll just ask you a couple more questions because we'll have to wrap up soon. One of them is there's a lot of work pressure on employees in a work from home setting compared to office work timings. So, in a situation like that, would there be any solution?
I think one of the things I had mentioned in my presentation itself is that you've got to redefine the nature of work when you're working from home. It has to be, at on a value adding paradigm. It has to say what is that you need to deliver on a day-to-day basis, or what is the nature of work you need to do. So it kind of has to be negotiated. There has to be saying this is the outcome that I expect, and this is what the customer needs, or which is what the next process needs. Yeah, so you need to negotiate with them, and then given that they may not be able to do 8 hours of continuous work, is there buckets of time where they do the work? So and can you also help them to be more productive in terms of the work they will do? Can you help them through productivity tools? Is there any way can they other people can share saying if you do this, this is shorter, less number of codes to be written. This is where you can debug things. Is there these kinds of expertise sharing by which the people who work from home can be more productive in much lesser time? That means you are concerned that you can't give 8 hours of work. You probably can't even give 6 hours of work. You may do only 4 hours of work because it's not so easy. So how do you ensure these kind of things happen? Realization is that work needs to be redefined. The work outcome needs to be redefined. And how do I help people in productivity tools by, given the time itself, they give whatever is agreed upon value to the customer, or value to the process, or value to another person who's working with whatever you have done.
Satish has said, is there a chance after a few months or a year later that we'll go to a pre-COVID era in manufacturing sectors? Actually, Satish, if I could, what Vadisa has been talking about till now is that there's going to be an entire shift towards a new normal, and therefore nothing can go back towards what it used to be, right? So, because we don't know when this is going to end, what is going to happen, and we might have to live with it. So,
I'll also add to what Kaveri is
yeah,
saying, that if you're looking at the post-COVID and the fact you got to do less with less, or you got to look at team productivity, you're actually looking at a much better way of working. You're looking at much more community way of working. You're looking at society as helping each other. You're looking at being more frugal. You're looking at being more efficient. Why would you like to go back? Yeah, you wouldn't like to go back to a the earlier way of working, because you've already changed. Like I said, you've already changed to a new way of working. You have given a lot of tools and techniques, so you're already getting efficient. So the normalcy would probably be a new normal to be more efficient, a new normal to be higher value adding, a new normal of people working closely in delivering to a customer, also more sense of empathizing and affinity. So the new normal would probably mean that I can generate far more happiness in work, far more revenues or margins in work. When you're going back to say, my business has gone back to what it was 3 months back. So the same kind of turnovers I need, same kind of revenues I can earn, but now you're going to do it far more efficiently. So which means that, the kind of reserves that you develop and the margins and profits is going to be that much better. So I would say that this new normal should help to people to be really efficient and care for each and every employee in a much better way. No, don't postpone any improvements. Can you do something with now available resources? You don't need to invest in it. So like that, it helps in a whole lot of knowledge capital evolving. Be it knowledge in how you treat people, be it now how you manage processes, be it knowledge in how do you look at digital communication. And it probably will kind of jumpstart a knowledge way of looking at entire organization, the way processes happen. So I think there's a little positive to it in that sense. So I think normalcy would be again another new normal of being far more effective and being efficient.
Yeah. Just to follow on that positivity note, the last question is: do you think that post-pandemic there'll be new opportunities, and if so, in what areas?
So the new opportunities would be far more on how do you look at servicing people. There definitely be a lot more opportunities on the way that you can coach people, right? A lot more people who need coaching. You would look at a lot more opportunities in terms of e-learning basis. How do you train people in new skills? So how do you look at education and development? There would be a kind of focus more on innovation. So how do you teach people, a systematic way of innovating? So like this, there would be many areas where new things would come in. Like if I need to create a LMS now, it's a new area of work. So how do you transfer the knowledge of all the people into a very efficient way of training and educating people? So that's a new business. If you're looking at being proactive to customers, how do you look at digital platforms? So creating digital platforms and working on cloud and e-services, those kinds of things would kind of really go forward. If you're looking at goods and services, there are some sectors which will probably have a downturn. It could be new things, like automotive sector. Maybe a year later it will be far more electric vehicles as compared to fossil fuel vehicles. There could be a more amount of renewable energy kind of industries that could grow up as compared to a regular power based kind of your fossil fuel and nuclear. It could be very different. So there could be those kinds of areas, because one thing that has come up during this lockdowns is nature has healed itself to a certain extent. You could feel more purer air. You could look at mountains with snow on it, which you could never look at it. Pollution level decreased a lot. So if you're looking at this is what the whole environment and the world has gained. If I want to make that happen, then those are the areas where new things can emerge. Like if the Ganga is clean because there is no pollutants coming in, can I create a pollution treatment system by which that industry can still ensure clean water? So you're looking at all these areas and where the things have benefited because you have data around it, and industries can start working on these areas. So that's something which can really be very, very interesting, because it would help the world. It would help nature. It would help society.
Thank you. And finally, I think I'll, if you have any other questions, screen on my chat box here. If you have any questions, if you'd like to provide any feedback, all the contact information is available here for anybody who would like to ask those questions as well as provide feedback. If everybody has taken that down.
Haveri, you are presenting?
Yes, I've presented. Is it visible?
No, not to me.
Hold on. It says that it's broadcasting, so there might be two of my names there.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So if everybody's taken down the information, before we end this webinar, I'd like to let you know that the fourth webinar is coming up on June 6th between 7 to 8:30 p.m. The topic is Resilience, the Core Competency of a Successful Person by Dr. Ganesh V. Sastry. For anybody interested.
So
thank you all for, yeah.
So thanks everybody. It was really a pleasure presenting this and answering a whole series of questions. It's very interesting, and I hope we can be of service to you in the future.